Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our July 13th, 2020 City Council meeting. We'll go ahead and start today with calling the meeting to order, and we'll ask Captain Williams to lead us in the pledge. Captain?
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, if you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to roll call. Jennifer, will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Bogue.
Here.
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
Councilmember Riddell.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen.
Here.
Mayor Avila.
Here. Okay, folks, as you can tell, two of our council members will be presiding via the teleconferencing. Please be patient. We'll take a couple of extra minutes, some extra time in doing the roll call. Moving on to the next item, Mr. Casey, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Staff would respectfully request, number one, for the record, note that there are revisions to items number 1 and 2 and a handout, item number 11, that have been made available to City Council and with copies in the back of the room on those items. And second, staff would respectfully request that item number 6 be moved to the end of the agenda from consent due to the governor's order today and expanded scope of that discussion related to the governor's order and issues related to that. Staff would respectfully request that that item be moved to the end of the agenda this evening.
Okay, so agenda item number 6 will be following item number 10, correct?
That is true. We should do that before the last department report, yes.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just, as part of that, I'd suggest that for item number 6, the council consider expanding the scope of that item in light of the information that came to the council's and staff's attention after the agenda was posted, and that would give the council some additional latitude to discuss that item this evening. And that is, we expect action that staff would recommend that should be taken before the next council meeting. So in order to do that, should be a motion to expand that item. Need a 4/5 council vote to add that expansion to the agenda, and then you could consider that as part of the item later on the agenda.
Okay, very good. So we can do that with the consent when we talk about the consent, correct?
I think since this is an item that you're moving from consent, I would suggest that we do that first, and then you can come back and have a motion on the remainder of the consent calendar.
Okay,
So I will move that make a motion that we move item number 6 to after, I guess it would be item 11, and expand that agenda item to include what the governor's remarks were for today.
Yes, and
Is that
staff's
correct?
responses and recommendations with
Okay.
respect to that. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll second that.
all right, we have a first and a second. Are there just any discussion on the issue? Hearing none, Jennifer, you take a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bogue.
Aye.
Councilmember Duncan.
Aye.
Councilmember Riddell.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen.
Aye.
Mayor Avila.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to employee introductions. Ray Casey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce Caroline Velarde this evening, our Housing and Economic Development Analyst. Thank you for coming up, Caroline. We need to keep 6 feet apart, but I'll invite you over as soon as I'm done. I just want to go through some of her responsibilities, and there are many. She coordinates our key real property deals and development projects and those agreements related to that, business support, retention, and outreach efforts. And she's very involved in some of that now with the county funding that's been made available to businesses in the community throughout the county. And then also our funding as well. She's been working very hard on the CDBG program to work through all of the details associated with that. She manages economic development related city programs, including the city's incubator center, facade improvement program, grant programs. Serves as the staff liaison for the Economic Development Advisory Committee. I call it the bus driver role. She's successfully taken on the bus driver role for our economic development activities and the COVID-19 funding opportunities for businesses in our community, and she does it well. She interacts well with the community in supporting existing and prospective businesses and reaching their goals, and facilitates the growth of Yucaipa's economy to help create premier quality of life for residents, visitors, business partners in this town. She is cleaning up a number of outstanding issues. Her follow-up is second to none. She really keeps track of all of us and our economic development efforts, and including the development community, and does a really good job of tracking those issues that are required to complete developments, complete agreements, et cetera, and keeps us all in line. She's been working on the sale of the property at 13th Street and Yucaipa Boulevard, a potential development project on Oakland and Avenue E with Eagle Development. Of course, that's the company that did the successful project at 5th and County Line and completed that recently. And again, I talked about the CDBG Small Business Loan to Grant program she's working on. She's got great communication and organization skills. Her hobbies including spending time with her daughter, her boyfriend Tim, I think are both here, just Tim is here, and of course family and friends, gathering interior design ideas for her home, and spoiling her fur babies, her pets. Her family includes, as I said, a daughter Lily, her dog Berkeley, and 2 bunnies, Ginger and Carmel. Interesting name. Let me introduce Caroline Velarde.
Thank you, Ray, for the introduction, and the mayor and city council. It didn't take me long to realize when I got here that this was a special place to work, a special community, and outstanding staff. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be part of the team and just helping the city prosper economically. And in my role in that, I've taken a lot of great pride, and of course with the support along the way. So I appreciate the opportunity and continue to be blessed to be part of this team.
Thank you, Caroline, and welcome aboard. We'd like to have our picture taken with you now, if we may. Or distance here. Any other pictures? That's it? Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on now to public comment. We have, I think, a number of them. In view of a complaint that I had a couple of weeks ago about not giving people adequate time, we're going to try an experiment this evening, is that everyone will have their full 3 minutes. Please hold your comments to 3 minutes, and then at the end, when the light and the buzzer sounds, please wrap it up so we give an opportunity for the next speaker to have their 3 minutes. If we tend to go over, we can be here for hours. So I do want to hear what everybody has to say, but we must be respectful and use our time wisely and efficiently. So without further ado, Everyone has a chance to speak. If you have if you want to speak, there are some speaker slips over there. But there's going to be a period of time when it's over. I can't just keep accepting speaker slips after everything starts going again, because we can be here all night, and that's not the intent of anybody. I want to hear what you have to say, but please have it already planned out. Okay, first out of the gate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a speaker to come up, and then I'm going to mention the second person's name, and that person will be on deck. So our first speaker is going to be Grace McKay, and on deck will be Abigail Gonzalez.
It's Grace McCrae.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. So, first off, I'd like to inform that I have information from an outside source that the live stream on YouTube via the website is not working. And I think we can all agree that racism is a bad thing. As a representation of the people of Yucaipa, I'd like to ask if you know what that word means. We fail to acknowledge that it happens on a spectrum and is so common that it can be inherited. It can stem from an action as common as failing to acknowledge privileges given to you by society and the history that it's built upon, to accepting support from members of the Klan. Racism can be as obvious as a swastika or a Confederate flag, but it is also so deeply rooted in society that it exists in the forms of redlining, mass incarceration, and racial profiling. The fact that there are people who will hear these phrases and not know what they mean shows the extent to which racism has been normalized and erased in everyday discussion. This is America, but it doesn't have to be. To move the conversation forward, we have to see the ways that we push our progress backwards. Labeling the black protesters as rioters or dangerous is racist. Labeling me as an angry black woman is racism. The aggression from counter-protesters towards the Black Lives Matter movement and the after effects that we've all seen are all the result of racism. Being able to actively ignore our voices is racism. And I want to ask if you care that your actions, or in some case, your lack of action, allow and encourage beliefs that uphold racism to continue in America and in Yucaipa. And the problem exists in Yucaipa. And I know that because not just from my own experience, but because it exists in America. In fact, America was figuratively and literally built upon racism. Its continuation is allowed with the failure to acknowledge it. It's no longer enough to stay on the fence. It's no longer enough to ride the fence. You have to be anti-racist. It's not political, it's not partisan, it's human. When you think of your next steps, Council, and if you once again turn your back from active members of your community, I want you to know that you contribute to this racism.
Thank you. All right, Abigail Gonzalez, and on deck is going to be Miguel J. Moreno Martinez. You're on deck.
Hello. I was one of the protesters on June 1st. I just have to say thank you for the way that you reacted. It kept me mad. That is why on Saturday, when there was the Blue Lives Matter merchandise sale that you guys allowed without a permit, me and my friend, we went and protested and more people showed up with us. And they brought us snacks and they brought us water and they brought us a whole bunch of stuff. On June 1st, I was yelled at. I was told to go back to my country, to which I was born here. I was born in Michigan. I was born somewhere whiter than here. My brother was born there. My brother is it's the Marine right in front of the police station who passed away a little over 2 years ago for this stupid country. You guys put his banner here and took a picture with him. And people are telling me to go back to where I'm from now. And you said it was okay. And you're gross. Sorry, but you're gross. Also, something that a lot of people aren't saying, on June 1st, For an hour, those men were only protecting the city from me. For an hour, I was the only one there standing with a sign. Then they started yelling at me to show them my penis because if I have short hair, I'm a man. Those are the men you say are okay. Yesterday we had a caravan, and you better believe that there's going to be more protests coming. I'm not scared. I'm not scared of these men. I'm not scared of you guys. My brother was a Marine. I have his blood in my blood. I'm not scared of you guys.
Okay, Miguel's up, and then followed by Nicole Padron.
Hello. This has been my first time being here. Well, I want to say that the feature basically I'm going to say is I am first off Miguel, 13061 2nd Street. But thing is, I want to say Abraham Lincoln actually said something about what's happening.
Miguel, I can't hear you. Can you speak closer to the mic?
Okay.
Thank you.
Abraham Lincoln is saying about everything about what happened in the Civil War. He's a Republican, but he also said for the people, by the people. What I mean by people is what he's saying about when people were in slavery and doing a lot of things about blacks are doing, and that's when silver people in the Southerns, they're actually causing a lot of trouble and causing a lot of backlash. And that's when everyone else invited to do something again. Because during that speech, what he's on Civil War speech, he actually brought up the things what he should be doing. He said about everything about for the people, by the people. He also saying about making a new freedom again for another different future. But this is coming back again by people trying to race about the Civil War. It did help about how the world goes. And so how I speak this because I have autism. But the thing is, I actually have a future of passion with Abraham Lincoln because I have things with, it's so badly warring with a lot of things with people who just like treating him like Donald Trump. He has to bring him like he's actually the person being a big fan with him. But are you doing things what he's actually acted to do? No. But technically, what he actually doing is causing ripping everyone apart. And now looking at you, Duncan, because of everything else that's going on, everyone else being doing being Donald Trump supporters, and being people that's like big fan with him, and that's like he's saying things about, oh, I'm doing good things with Abraham Lincoln. He actually put some talks, white friend of Abraham Lincoln, I'm loyal. And I felt bad what he did that because that's not the how on earth the public should be doing that. Because this is not the way the history is shown. This is not the way that America is about black people who have to deal with a lot of pressure. I have to deal with a lot because my family don't want me to be here. Because they're afraid that I'm actually going to say something. Because a lot of white people actually don't want me to be talking. Because a lot of things what's happening here, it's ungrateful. Because after I seen last night, from that during the time when people actually showing their shotgun, Duncan, and then what happened, they would not bring it up, and you actually put things in social media and I heard. But technically, that's unprecedented, what you just did. But thing is, all of this should not be happening around the city. It should be peaceful. It should be nice. But I guess a lot of people are trustworthy with your side as they helping you out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Nicole Padron, and then following her will be Brenda Abraham, or him.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. And thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Nicole Padron, and my husband and I purchased our home in Yucaipa about 1 year ago. And I'm here today to speak out against the racism in Yucaipa. Over the last few months, we've been appalled to see how some of the residents and even Councilman Bobby Duncan have inappropriately responded to the recent peaceful protests in support of Black Lives Matter. The recent events brought to light the intolerance that is present in our city. And this isn't the first time that racism has been illuminated in Yucaipa. Just last October, parents and athletes of Yucaipa High School's football team yelled racial taunts and slurs against Rialto's Carter High athletes, who are predominantly Black and Latino. And also last year, Councilman Bobby Duncan posted xenophobic content targeting Muslims on Facebook, causing the council to adopt a code of conduct, which he later broke and decided to bring his rifle to the peaceful protests that occurred last month. We need better role models. We need more empathy and understanding for our fellow citizens who deserve to be treated with the same respect and justice as anyone else. We need to make positive change to foster a more accepting community, regardless of race, class, religion, sexual orientation, etc. I urge the council and Mayor Avila to consider how we can come together and bridge the gap. I'm deeply concerned about the welfare of the people of color in our city, as well as the future of our children, who are poised to inherit this intolerance if we don't change our ways. Thank you, and Black Lives Matter.
Okay, Brenda, followed by Aaron or Mike McHugh.
Mayor Avila and council members, please explain why there has been no official condemnation of the actions of the vigilantes who attacked peaceful protesters on June 1st, 2020. Many of the people in the crowd that attacked the protesters are members of a group calling themselves Yucaipa Strong and Yucaipa Militia. Members of these groups have recorded themselves engaging in behavior that could be characterized as harassment of fellow Yucaipans who were critical of their vigilantism, hate speech, and social media posts on the Yucaipa Strong Facebook page. These posts contained racist, sexist, and homophobic language and references to white supremacy groups such as Boogaloo Boys and 3%ers. They have also allegedly engaged in making threatening phone calls to myself and others. That page has since been taken down, but before it was removed, it was noted that a city councilman, Mr. Duncan, was a member and frequent contributor to the divisive and shameful dialogue that took place on the page. Not surprisingly, members identifying themselves as Yucaipa Militia and Yucaipa Strong members have been vocal supporters of Councilman Duncan's questionable behavior on June 1st, 2020, when he was seen possibly violating California's penal code, prohibiting the open carry of firearms. City Council must denounce Mr. Duncan's actions and the actions of the members of these militia groups. Over the weekend, some of these same Yucaipa Strong, Yucaipa Militia members were seen at a gathering where pro-Trump and associated merchandise was being sold across the street from the Yucaipa Police Department. The purpose of this gathering was supposedly to show appreciation for our city's police officers and was advertised as such on social media. One of the items seen on display was a 3%er flag. This group is a known hate group and advocates for race wars. YPD needs to unequivocally disavow any relationship and any support given by these groups. The community cannot trust a police department that is associated in any way with known racist organizations or members thereof. City leadership and our police department must publicly and strongly condemn the vigilantism on and after June 1st, and unequivocally and specifically disavow association with these militia groups or risk the ongoing appearance of tacit agreement with them. Also, City Councilman Duncan, you may actually pull your mask up over your face. You have fallen for yet another hoax, believing that it will render your concealed carry permit worthless. So please have respect for your fellow citizens and wear your mask properly.
Okay, Aaron, and you are actually Mike McHugh, okay, for Aaron. So is this the one where you wanted to use
Yeah,
4 minutes?
yeah.
Okay.
First of all, I don't condone the actions of some on the 1st, June 1st. My son was actually protesting on the protesting side, but showed up to the last meeting to support Bob Duncan, allowing us to exercise our Second Amendment. There was a coordinated unity as the town of Yucaipa came together to protect life, property, and livelihoods. Most of us, along with the rest of the world, watched the news of businesses burned, store windows and fronts broken into and looted, people ripped out of cars, beaten, and in some cases killed, all in the name of George Floyd and the organization named Black Lives Matter. As a result of using our constitutional rights and protecting our town, BLM uses town hall meetings to attack Bob Duncan and label the entire town of Yucaipa as racist and violent. I reviewed several of the videos from the incident on June 1st, including my son, who was filming on the side with the protesters. Both sides stepped off the curb into the street. Some protesters were peaceful and some weren't. So I thought we should go over some of the info on the organization of who actually controls the Black Lives Matter movement. BLM is a Marxist movement disguised in racial unrest. BLM members with constant accusations of racism, violence, while the leaders and founders are openly racist on nationwide media outlets. BLM members are propagandists inciting a nationwide race war, creating division in our communities and poisoning the minds of our youth. Quote, insanity to consider how racism is acceptable so long it is being directed at white people. That's Candace Owens, a black lady. I'm sure you've heard of her. BLM Toronto co-founder Yasra Kogali posted a tweet on February 9th. Please, Allah, give me the strength to not cuss, kill these men and white folks out here today. Please, please, please. In an interview on Real News Network, Patrice Collins, BLM co-founder, states, "We are trained Marxists." On Fox News, Hawk Newsom, BLM leader, says, "If we don't get what we want, we will burn this system down." BLM is funded by Clinton Foundation and George Soros. Donations to BLM go to Act Blue, the activist arm of the Democratic Party. When you click on Donate to BLM, it takes you to Act Blue. If donated money goes unclaimed, Act Blue disperses it however they feel. I have a list of where the money goes. I'll just give you one off the top. Joe Biden, $119,000. That's rounded down. Went into the Biden campaign. That's off the top of my head. There's a list of 10. Morgan Freeman said on 60 Minutes, he was asked, how are we going to rid of racism? He said, stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you white man, and I'm going to ask you to stop calling me black man. Between Obama and BLM, they undermined 52 years of progress that is destroying Martin Luther King's legacy. Here's a list of Black Lives That Matter. Natalia Wallace, 7 years old. Mikal James, 10 years old. Renata Jones, Jr., 14 years old. Sincere Gaston, 1 year old. Amariah Jones, 13. Devin McNeil, 11. Sequoia Turner, 8. These are Black Lives That Matter, and Black Lives Matter is silent on all these deaths. That's all I have.
Okay, Ron Kleiner, followed by Marianne Lovelace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I've been a resident of Yucaipa since before Yucaipa was incorporated into a city, and my family's been here much longer than that. We really love the small town feel here. What Yucaipa has been accused of recently is not what Yucaipa is. I think in the introduction of your new employee, she feels how Yucaipa really is. It's a small town family feel, and that's what it is. See this piece of paper? This is white. I'm not white. None of us are white. We're all some color of brown. We're one race, the human race. Martin Luther King said that we should be judged by our character, not our color. I hope we can get back to that. But going back to what happened on June 1st, there was a credible threat because the same people on social media that were filming the burning in San Bernardino the day before were saying, now we're going to go to Yucaipa and Redlands and burn it down. And as a small business owner myself, I understand just how the small businessmen feel here. And I know what they were going through. And they wouldn't just spend the money to board up their buildings just for nothing. And I just want to commend Bobby Duncan for standing up shoulder to shoulder with the citizens of this town to protect the town, because a show of strength is what stopped a riot from happening, because there were a lot of cars going up and down the boulevard that normally are not here. They were, I believe they were from out of town. But I just wanted to just say that this town, I love this town, my family, I raised my family here, my grandkids live here, and I just want to say thank you to the city council and to the townspeople. Let's work together. I know there's bad apples in every bunch, no one's perfect, but I think we should all learn from it, come together, and move on. Thank you.
Marion Lovelace, and then our last speaker is going to be Kara Shatwell.
Marion Lovelace, Yucaipa, California, and I'm going to change the subject for you guys. Okay, a few months ago when the city, everything got closed down, you could not have open council meetings, but we could listen to them and then read about them if we wanted to. But the one change you made that I thought was wonderful, we could still public comment through email. It was a great concept, and after all this is over with, I hope it's one you keep. Except the last council meeting, when they went to read some of the emails, two of the people asked that their names not be used. Excuse me, our names are used when we're here. If you write a letter to the editor, your name is used. You do not get to complain or whatever by hiding behind a keyboard and your name not there. And I thought at the beginning, Mr. Casey said, yes, they do need to use their name. And then the attorney said, no. I may have that wrong, but when it was all said and done, their email could be read, their name withheld. I'm sorry, that is very wrong. It should not be that way. It's the same for us. Do we all want to fill out slips that say, concerned citizen? And you decide who's coming up? No. If you're going to speak, whether it be by email or in person, your name should be out there as well. Thank you.
Okay, Kara Shatwell.
Hi. I didn't plan on coming up here today, but I just want to say,
Kara, could you speak into the microphone, please?
I didn't plan on coming up here today at all, but I just want to say that I've been in Yucaipa since '78, and I've gone to school with Becky and everybody, but I've never known it to be racist. And I know there was some multicultural families in here, and I never knew anybody to be racist. But with that being said, I've gone to school in San Bernardino, I've worked in Bloomington, and I've had so much racism towards me, calling me a white girl, stupid white girl, what are you doing here? And it never really bothered me because I figured we live in America. And if that's what they wanted to think about me, they're entitled. They don't know me. And I think that when we start taking away rights to say you're not allowed to say this and you're not allowed to say that. You don't have to agree with everybody. And I think that's what America's about, is we can say what we feel, whether people agree or not. But I don't want to take the people's rights away that hate me. Just like I don't want to take away my right to say, in God I trust, my Second Amendment rights. And I think that the whole fact of the United States, the foundations is getting lost in all this mess. And I support you for coming out with your arms. We have the Second Amendment. I support the protesters coming. And I wish that it wouldn't be so ugly, but it is. And I just want everybody to take a moment and realize freedom goes both ways. So if we want to fly our American flag or Blue Lives Matter or whatever, we have the right to say that. And I feel like we're getting trampled on being able to say that. And I'm not racist. I'm the last person that would ever be considered racist. And I just want to say that from my point of view, and people that are on my point of view too, that don't take our rights away. I don't mind your rights, but don't take mine. Don't take my Second Amendment. Don't take my rights to say I care about the police officers, and I care about the Black people too. It's just, don't take my rights away in gaining yours. And that's all really I want to say.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, what's that? We have written?
I have public comment to read into record.
Okay. How many do you have?
Six that were received on time, and 2 others that were received after the deadline.
Mr. Counsel, with respect to signatures and names, I think the speaker had a good point, is that we asked the speakers here to identify themselves, and yet we may have some writers who don't identify themselves. Do we have the right or privilege to not read them into the record, since they don't want to, basically identify who they are?
Mr. Mayor, under the Brown Act for public comments, even here at the dais, individuals are allowed to not state their name. We ask folks to fill out speaker slips to identify themselves so that they can be called up and we can run the meeting. Anyone can refuse to do that. They can put down another name. In the scenario the speaker identified, if everyone puts concerned citizen, I think the clerk would identify them as concerned citizen 1 through however, or try to get a unique identifier so that we could still run the meeting. But the Brown Act does not allow for us to require someone here to provide their name. Applying that same rule to the email correspondence that we now accept, I think is the proper way to proceed. Therefore, just like if someone was here declining to give their name, they would still be afforded the opportunity to speak. I would suggest that we follow that same policy with respect to the email correspondence.
I understand. Okay, very good. We'll move on.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
If it continues to be a problem, because there are many people that could hide behind their keyboard and not put their name out there, we can always withdraw that, the reading in of emails at council meeting. Is that correct?
That's a policy of the council, certainly, yes.
Okay.
Okay. But for now, at least, we'll go ahead and read all of the statements as provided. And they get 3 minutes also.
Frank Kirk. Our names are Rosario and Frank Kirk. We lived in Yucaipa for around 10 years. We've known the community to be a peaceful place up until the last few months. We were part of a group called Yucaipa Strong for a short time and learned that it is hiding beneath the surface of our community. That group does not stand for what the whole community stands for. There is hate spread on that page. We voiced our opinion against this, and it didn't go well with the members of that page. This is not every member of that page, only about 10 or 15 people and admins of the page. We dealt with the death threats and people driving by our house recording us One of the main members of Yucaipa Strong filmed herself driving by our house, yelling, taking photos, and getting pulled over for it. Even the officer said, "This needs to stop or it's going to get bad and someone is going to get killed or hurt." You can't go threatening people, doxing and driving by their home, harassing them because you don't agree with them. Our home is also our place of business. Besides our private information, they have accused us of being sex offenders. Bobby Duncan dropped by. We weren't home, so we called him. It seemed like he wanted to help, but when we described who was responsible for everything, his attitude changed. When we suggested all we had to do was make a post asking Yucaipa Strong members to stop, he refused and stated, "You're not going to tell me how to run this town." Bobby Duncan knows what's going on with these 2 pages. This page is not the voice of our town. It's very concerning to us that a leader of this town would allow this type of behavior and do nothing but encourage it by joining Yucaipa Strong and the Yucaipa Militia Facebook groups. We will be the voice of many who are too scared to speak. We need change. Bobby Duncan clearly can't lead, and it is time for him to step down.
The next person, please. And please, before you do that, hold your applause down because it's just taken time and we really need to move along. Thank you for your cooperation.
Andy Bradbury. My name is Andy Bradbury, and I've been a resident of Yucaipa for 21 years. Let me also state that this entire email is for the record. I moved here from a small town in San Diego where 7 communities went to the same high school. 55 people in my graduating class. Yucaipa was the town that made me feel most at home in the Inland Empire. I watched it grow. It's always been the best town in San Bernardino, and it continues to be. I love it here. I'm also the general manager of a very successful construction company located a quarter-mile south of the courthouse in San Bernardino. The events of May 31st in San Bernardino was all that I saw on Monday when I went to work on June 1st. The looting, the rioting, the graffiti on the courthouse, the DMV on fire, I witnessed the damage that was done in its aftermath firsthand. The only other things I saw on Monday were the threats from the same peaceful BLM supporters stating that they were going to do the same in Redlands and racist Yucaipa. It blew my mind and created a lot of tension. I left work early and came home, armed myself and set to protect my family, our home, and our neighborhood. The same thing that everyone uptown did with their business. The only difference between us is I was not confronted and attacked like they were. I fully support the community of Yucaipa and their actions. Our town did not end up like others. I also fully support Councilmember Bobby Duncan. This town is far from racist, and I'm tired of hearing about it. You think after 21 years I'd seen something to prove me wrong. Thank you for your time, and please contact me with questions. Concerned citizen of District 2. On Tuesday, June 23rd, the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors officially passed a resolution declaring racism a public health crisis. That was almost 3 weeks ago. Mayor Avila, as a member of the Rotary Club, you are supposed to be a leader who unites and takes action to create long-lasting change in your community. It goes without saying that the Rotary's description of a leader is not all that far off from the description of being a leader as an elected official, especially one with the title of mayor. With that said, and in regards to the county declaring racism as a public health crisis, I have to ask, where are these leadership qualities right now? Your city needs and deserves a mayor who is a leader on combating racism. Council members Bogue, Duncan, Allen, and Riddell, as you are each elected officials and leaders of the city also, I ask the same question of you in regards to the county declaring racism as a public health crisis. Where are your leadership qualities right now? Now and going forward, which one of you, City Council, has the integrity to say the right thing and at the right time about racism that clearly exists here? And who of you will not only speak out and denounce hate speech and racism, but take concrete action toward making it Yucaipa's goal to be a city that is anti-racist? Words and statements are nothing. Action and results are everything. If you do not set goals with results in mind, it tells us that you didn't mean anything you have said or will say. For instance, Mr. Mayor, the candlelight vigil was an action, but it was but it was without a result in mind. It was all for show, but all it showed was that the city lacks the leadership and results it deserves on combating racism. Thoughts and prayers are not enough to eliminate racism. Yucaipa has witnessed inaction on being anti-racist. That needs to change. Look inside your heart and do what this city needs and lead. In the City of Yucaipa Executive Proclamation and Order Number 20-03 dated June 2nd, 2020, the city states that it, and I quote, seeks to be an ally in the fight against racial injustice and the dismantling of systemic racism, end quote. Those are big words, now show us action and results. Ariana Hun. Good evening. I write to echo concerns raised by fellow Yucaipa citizens last week's special meeting of the City Council regarding the 2-minute time limit on public comments during the meetings on June 8th and June 22nd. The agenda for both meetings indicated that each speaker would be allotted 3 minutes, but speakers had their time reduced to 2 minutes per speaker. Last week, you justified this with reference to City Rules and Procedures, Section 5.4, which allows limiting the number of speakers heard on non-agenda topics at a single meeting. However, at the June 8th and June 22nd meetings, the number of speakers was not limited. The amount of time they could speak was. The Rules and Procedures Section 5.2 states that each member must limit their statement to 3 minutes unless further time has been granted by the presiding officer. This means that a speaker's time can be extended, but not reduced from 3 minutes. This is reinforced by Section 2.5, which states that the mayor may, at the beginning of the hearing, limit testimony to 3 minutes per individual. Again, at 6-8 and 6-22 meetings, speakers were limited to 2 minutes, not 3. Further, Section 2.5 states that individuals may be granted the right to speak longer when deemed necessary. The example is given, quote, in such cases as when a person is speaking as a representative of a group. On 6-22, a speaker who clearly introduced himself as a leader of a recognized group speaking on behalf of that group was denied the time needed to complete his comments. As I understand it, the Brown Act does allow modifications to public comment time limits where necessary to accommodate a lengthy agenda. However, the meeting on 6-8 with 15 agenda items was only 3 hours and 8 minutes long. The meeting on 6-22 with 27 agenda items lasted only 2 hours and 51 minutes. In the city's rules and procedures, it specifies in Section 1.8 that meetings will conclude by 11, with the last agenda item begun at 10:30 p.m. If the 36 public commenters on June 8th and the 20 public commenters on June 22nd would have been allowed their full 3 minutes, both meetings would have still ended well before 10:30. Further, the city's own rules and procedures document has a process in place for how to handle instances where all public comments cannot be accommodated in one meeting. This is outlined in Section 5.4 and does not include shortening speakers' time for public comments. I respectfully request that the city cure and correct these violations of their own rules and procedures, and that the city follow the Brown Act so as to ensure that full political participation is afforded to the citizens of Yucaipa. Glory Garcia, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to offer public comments in praise of the work of the City Council. In particular, I would like to thank Bobby Duncan. Last year, Bobby's social media posts got him in trouble, but people do not see that Bobby uses Facebook to help our community because he does it in private. But let me tell you, I saw in Yucaipa Strong that he shared information about which stores in Yucaipa don't enforce mask requirements so that we can all shop there. He told us to go to Vaughn's, not Stater Brothers. He helps our community by telling us this COVID is all a hoax. What a great leader and public servant to protect our health from lies. He also helps with love connections. On Yucaipa Strong, where there are like-minded people, he asked a woman if she was the one who gave public comments at the city council meeting last month and then suggested that she might go out with his son. What a wonderful way to use this position on city council to promote strong moral values. I stand behind Bobby using social media in this way and also to profit his own business, like he did on the Nextdoor app where he answered a post about a woman looking for a contractor letting her know he could take the job, and then sweeten the deal by saying he could push her project through city council. That's what being a city council member is all about, helping out your fellow citizens and benefiting from this position. Like Bobby using Yucaipa Strong to reach out to those poor boys who were called racist just for assuming on June 1st that brown-skinned people don't live in Yucaipa. Bobby knows that we were just defending the town from Antifa, sorry. That's why we sat with his own shotgun outside Yucaipa too. It's ridiculous to expect a sitting council member to follow the city's own rules against having loaded shotguns within city limits, or California's own penal code. Bobby made clear that this is an open carry city. And for that, Councilmember Duncan, we all salute you. I wouldn't normally speak at council, but when I saw Bobby Duncan had so few people supporting him last week that his own daughter had to submit comments after 3 p.m. deadline, I had to say something. Micah Rainey, 2 weeks ago I asked you, thought your silence was communicating. In these weeks, I am saddened to see no further communication or action from council. Mayor Avila, while I appreciate the gesture of your candlelight vigil, I also would like to appeal to the need for further action. I am further concerned about Councilmember Duncan's unwillingness to acknowledge the harm in his actions. Duncan's job as a public official requires him to abide by the Code of Ethics and Conduct. For quick reference, page 18 of the code outlines a checklist for monitoring conduct. Among other things, it asks, even if my conduct is not illegal or unethical, is it done at someone else's painful expense? Does my conduct give others reason to trust or distrust me? Do I listen and understand the views of others? Do I question and confront different points of view in constructive manner? Do I support others and show respect for their ideas? On page 15, the code also outlines examples of improper conduct such as showing hostility, spreading rumors, stirring up bad feelings, decisiveness. Thinking of Bobby Duncan contradicting Yucaipa PD about alleged threat, violating California firearm laws in public, and misleading the public on those laws raises the question, does this conduct meet Yucaipa's code of conduct? Should we not hold our leadership to the standard they signed? Further, if we do not abide by our own rules, why do they exist? City policy outlines steps for responding to conduct violations. Why have these steps not been taken? To everyone who believes we have some nefarious agenda and have come to attack this town, that simply is not true. I'm worried that argument is being used as an excuse to not engage in productive steps for change here in Yucaipa. This is coming from the same Micah who spoke last meeting, the meeting before, and the meeting before. Let's change the city for the better. These are two that were received after the deadline. Bill Meekum, respect for our flag. There has been a great deal of recent commentary about being respectful to our flag. Some people may not know that there is a United States flag code that lays down the ways our flag can be displayed. Over this last week, I saw many people in Yucaipa using our flag in ways that are in violation of that code. The following are ways some residents disrespect our flag. Displaying the flag on a wall or on a fence, like on the Yucaipa Boulevard Bridge across I-10 freeway, is not allowed. Flying the flag in a way that it cannot hang free, such as on a vehicle where it touches the vehicle in any manner, is prohibited and disrespectful to our flag. Flying our flag when it is tattered or torn is disrespectful. And finally, flying our flag with another flag on the same pole above our flag is disrespectful. I respect anyone who wants to fly our flag. I would hope, though, that they would read the flag code and comply with the requirements of that code. You may find the code by Googling U.S. flag code. David Duran. I am no longer aghast or appalled at the recent behavior in Yucaipa. I am angry. Antifa did not come to town and burn it down. Rioters and looters did not come to town. Not one home was invaded and looted. The smoldering cigarette in front of the KKK cafe was not an act of arson by Antifa. The front door of the KKK cafe was not shattered by Antifa. Yet, hysteria was rampant on the internet. Rumors that were posted and reposted ran wild about the Huns coming to Yucaipa to waste our city. Why would they come to Yucaipa? Why not Claremont or Rancho Cucamonga or Redlands with their trove of stores? And why uptown at the same small strip mall housing the KKK cafe? I love my town. That's nothing here worth Antifa traveling 80 miles to burn the city to the ground. Yet wild, irrational fear and anxiety-causing rumors caused men to arm themselves to fight off Antifa and the rioters and looters who were coming to Yucaipa by carload. I marched in the peaceful protest from the 7th Street Park to the police station with Yucaipa High School students and young adults from our city who were demonstrating their concern about the murder of George Floyd. There were armed men with live ammunition along the route watching Yucaipa's children and grandchildren, for God's sake. Mr. Duncan, what was the tipping point for you? What was the one rumor that caused you to become irrational and to arm yourself and join those who had already drunk the Kool-Aid? I want to know, and the citizens of Yucaipa need to know, what possessed you not to alert the sheriff with the information you had, the policemen here who are trained to handle just about any situation. Why did you lose confidence in them being able to do their job? You are a council member, a leader in this city, and you lost your sense of good judgment and responded to the rampant hysteria by arming yourself and joining the other armed men. I believe you should reflect and think earnestly about what you did in light of your position as councilman. Can you be counted on to be level-headed when the big earthquake strikes Yucaipa, or perhaps a fire comes roaring down from the hills and burns homes to the ground? Can you be counted on to act rationally in time of real crisis?
Is that it? That's it. Thank you. All righty, we have all of our comments in, public comments. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Anybody want to make a motion or pull anything from the consent agenda for discussion?
So move as modified that we move 6 to number 11.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second to approve the consent agenda with moving number 6 to after number 10. We have no further discussion. Jennifer, will you take roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Bogue?
Aye.
Councilmember Duncan?
Aye.
Councilmember Riddell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Aye.
Mayor Avila?
Yes. Okay. Moving on to mayor and council member business reports. Anything from the council to report?
I have nothing.
Nothing. Councilmember Riddell or Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Allen, do you have anything to report?
This is Riddell. I have nothing to report.
Okay. Move on to item number 7. Which is designation of the voting delegate and alternate for the League of California Cities Expo and Conference. Do we need a report here? Is that you, Ray?
Not much of one. We're assuming that, and the League of Cities is assuming that they are going to hold the conference in October. And even if they end up holding it in some other fashion besides in person, it would be appropriate, I think, to designate a voting delegate and an alternate for the conference to be held October 7th through the 9th at the Long Beach Convention Center. That's our recommendation this evening.
All righty. Seems historically I've always been one over the other, but it's not important for me to be a delegate. Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Allen was an alternate last year, I believe. Denise, are you willing to step up and be the primary delegate?
I think I'm not going to be in town that week.
All right. Is there anybody else who's interested in being the primary delegate for the California League of Cities Conference and Expo? So,
I'll do it if you want me to.
okay, and so Bobby Duncan has thrown his hat into the ring there to be the primary. Do we have an alternate?
I can't do it.
Okay, so I guess I'll throw my hat in the ring and be the alternate. Is there a motion to choose Bobby as a primary and me as the alternate?
This is Riddell. I move it.
Okay, we have a first. Is this going to die for a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. I don't think there's going to be any discussion. Jennifer, will you take the roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Bogue?
Aye.
Councilmember Duncan?
Aye.
Councilmember Riddell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen,
Aye.
Mayor Avila.
Aye. Yes. Okay. Moving on to item number 8. Amendment number 8, City Manager Employment Agreement. And I guess that'll be Mr. Snow?
No, I guess
Oh.
I'll do it unless Dave wants to. Okay.
Jennifer?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item before you is Amendment number 8 to the City Manager Employment Agreement. The amendment states there's a few components that the city manager shall not receive a salary increase for fiscal year 2020 unless at mid-year budget the projected revenues exceed 2019-2020 revenues by 2% or greater. And if so, the retroactive increase would be 2.7% as of July 1st, 2020. Another component would be revenue losses related to COVID-19 are reimbursed through state and federal funding. Another component is the implementation of a 410 work schedule and closure of city facilities from December 21st to January 4th. I would like to note that the same has been consented to the general unit and the management, supervisory, and confidential employees. So at this time, that's all I have, unless you have any other questions.
Any questions of staff? Thank you, Jennifer.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Jennifer, take roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bogue.
Aye.
Councilmember Duncan.
Aye.
Councilmember Riddell.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen.
Aye.
Mayor Avila.
Yes. Okay, one more here. Item number 9. April Williams case number 20-062, an extension, 2-year extension of time for parcel map. And that'll be Mr. Matlock.
Thank you, all honorable mayor and city council members. Before you is case number 20-062. It's a 2-year time extension. For case number 07-11, it's tentative parcel map 18533 to subdivide the property into 3 parcels at the southeast corner of Cedar Avenue in California Street. This project was originally approved by the Planning Division in June 26, 2017. With the state extensions that happened during the Great Recession, the expiration date was extended to July 2017 with a time extension timely filed at that time. And then as we're approaching the expiration date for 2020, they have submitted the 2-year time extension for city council review, which would extend the expiration date to July 6, 2022. As part of our review for any time extension, conditions of approval are amended to reflect any current requirements, either under the city's standard condition of approval or under state law requirements, and no other changes to the project are proposed. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
Very good. Any questions of staff?
So move.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Real fast question. Ben, this is their final extension?
That is correct. So after the 2 years, they would either have to resubmit a new application to revive that project.
Excellent. All right, thank you, sir. So we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Jennifer, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bogue.
Aye.
Councilmember Duncan.
Aye.
Councilmember Riddell.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen.
Aye.
Mayor Avila.
Yes. All right, moving on to public hearings. We're going to open up the public hearing for item number 10, the ordering confirmation of annual assessments for the City of Yucaipa Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance District Number 1.
This is me.
And that'll be Mrs. Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a public hearing for the purpose of setting the rates for properties located within LLMD District Number 1. On June 22nd, Council noticed the public hearing and set tonight as the date of the hearing. This hearing is to approve the application of rate adjustments as detailed in the staff report that are applied per zone subject to the original engineer's report. It is staff's recommendation that Council conduct the public hearing, which will provide the affected property owners with the opportunity to object to the rate adjustments and subsequently adopt resolution number 2020-31 ordering confirmation of assessment for the City of Yucaipa LLMD District Number 1. Approve the rate adjustment of 2.3% for zones A, and F through R, 5% for zones B and S through DDD pursuant to the engineer's report. And then there are a series of credits that have been applied pursuant to the administrative funding policy, which has been approved by council several years ago. This includes my staff report. I am happy to address any questions that you may have. And there has been no public comments received on this item.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Are any questions or comments for staff? Hearing none. No public comments, so applicant rebuttal. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and open for council discussion. Any discussion?
I'll move the item.
We have a motion to move. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bogue,
Aye.
Councilmember Duncan,
Aye.
Councilmember Riddell,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen,
Aye.
Mayor Avila.
Yes. All right, moving on to the next public hearing, item number 11. We'll open up that item. Forward certified solid waste lien list to the County of San Bernardino for addition to the property tax rolls. Assistant City Manager Crawford again.
Thank you. This is a solid waste delinquent list before you. This evening is comprised of single-family residential, mobile home parks, and commercial accounts. With the incorporation of single-family residential tax roll billing, the amount of residential delinquent accounts has decreased by 35.75% just over the past year. I provided you with a handout earlier this evening, and as you can see, as of July, that's looked at July for both last year and the current year. Last year, the delinquent residential accounts totaled 842. This year, you can see on the graph, it's 541, and we're expecting that to drop about an additional 50 by the time it has to be submitted to the county tax assessor. So we are seeing a decline in decreases, or a decline in residential single-family due to tax roll billing. Single-family residential delinquent accounts represent the residential unpaid accounts from last year's May-June 2019 balances that were not captured as part of the July 1st implementation of tax roll billing due to the required delinquent notices received. So we will not get down to zero in single-family residential just because if people do not pay, if they come on mid-year or they have a change in their service and then they do not pay their May-June bill, then due to noticing requirements of their late payment, it misses the timing for tax roll billing. So our numbers will dramatically reduce that you've seen in years past, but they will probably never go to zero. But I can foresee, based on the last couple of years' trends, that they'll get down, I would say, and Richard's here to correct me if he wants, probably around 100 is what the goal would be. Just to let you know, there were, as stated in the annual report submitted by BERTEC a couple meetings ago, there are 12,542 residential customers, single-family residential customers, and based on the current number of 541 delinquent accounts that so far is represented, that equates to 4.31% that are delinquent out of all the single-family residential accounts. It's just important to note. Property owners appearing on the list who make appropriate payments to Yucaipa Disposal prior to August 21st will have their account removed from the county 2020-21 tax roll lien. It is anticipated that the list will further be reduced, as stated, to about 500. The city will recover $6 per delinquency, which will offset the finance department's cost to receive payments from the county and to make remittance back to Yucaipa Disposal. I'd like to note also that Richard Nino of Yucaipa Disposal is here this evening if you have any questions for BERTEC relating to this item. The recommendation is that you conduct a public hearing and subsequently adopt resolution number 2020-27, forwarding amounts remaining unpaid on the certified solid waste lien list to the County of San Bernardino for addition to the 2021 property tax rolls as a special assessment, and also based on the testimony of no public testimony tonight, we do not have a majority protest of the liens before you. That's all I have.
Okay, do we have any public speakers or any comments on this subject?
No, sir.
Okay, would the applicant's representative like to come up and say a few words? Are you good right there? Okay, he's good right there. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and open it up for council discussion. And before we do a motion, I want to make sure that we get all of our comments in. Any comments so far from anybody? Okay, I do have one comment. One of the things that I would like to see in the future is an opportunity to know what the billing is for a one-year subscription. I'm in the fortunate position where I can pay it off all at once. And unfortunately, I don't get any notification of what my potential bill would be. I did receive a notice from Burtech in their quarterly flyer that indicated that we have the opportunity to do single billing, you know, by July 17th, followed up with a postcard, I think, or something similar to that, also indicating, but there was really no price attached to it. I think that we should have the opportunity to know what we are paying ahead of time and be given that option to decide, well, I'll pay it all before the deadline, or do I want to break it up into my tax bill? I think that would help. It would help me, and I think it would help many other people who prefer to keep it off the tax rolls. Any comments on that?
No, I agree with some of the things that you said. I think what we could do is, there's a couple of other things I would like to attach to that, but maybe there's something we could work out in our committee. I have a couple of other ideas that I have talked to staff about, and then I like your idea, and we'll discuss that in our committee meetings for the next go around.
All right. Any other comments?
No, this is Denise. I just wanted to say that in 1 year to see a 42% reduction in the delinquent accounts for services rendered is a significant move in the right direction. So I believe that the tax roll billing was the right choice.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like we're going in the right direction indeed. Okay, did I close the public hearing?
42%.
Okay. All righty. If there's no further
And I'll
discussion,
move the item.
we have a motion to approve the item, to move it. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
First and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Jennifer, you take a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bogue?
Aye.
Councilmember Duncan?
Aye.
Councilmember Riddell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Aye.
Mayor Avila?
Yes. Okay, now we'll go back to item number 6 is the final item on the open agenda. And that will be extend a local emergency. And who's doing that?
That would be me, Mr. Mayor. And as we talked about at the beginning, staff would like to expand the discussion based on the governor's order today, beyond just extending the local emergency. As I'm sure council is aware, the governor announced today in his meeting, in his presentation, I guess, some significant changes to activities allowed, particularly in counties that are in the monitoring area, which San Bernardino County is among, I think, 30 counties throughout the state. And I'll just summarize those quickly. His order bans all indoor activities relative to bars, restaurants, family entertainment. It also, for counties on the monitoring list, bans fitness center use again, worship services, non-essential offices, bans activity in all those, and then barber shops, and also indoor malls. And so staff wanted to continue some of the discussion this evening relative to city facilities, and how we're dealing with our public interaction with the public, but also moving ahead, moving forward, some opportunities and some challenges ahead of us as these changes are occurring. And of course, it all starts with the data that the governor is using for making these decisions. And of course, we have continued to communicate with the county and other city managers, the CEO's office, and of course, there's the 30,000-foot level committee with the board and the mayors. But it's clear here in the county, we are seeing an uptick in positive cases as well. I think we're all seeing people around us, closer and closer to us perhaps, that are testing positive. But one of the big indicators for the county in particular is hospitalization, folks in the ICUs, and those numbers are rising quickly. With, I think statewide, the hospitalization number being up something like 28% here of late. And so those are evolving statistics that, of course, have everybody concerned. And so although there is nothing new in the order that we can ascertain relative to facilities, we have implemented mandatory use of masks in city facilities. Unless I hear otherwise this evening, we are going to be very clear about mandatory masks in our city facilities. We don't want to go back to appointments. Many cities have done that, either never came away from appointments and never went back. Never allowed for full access at the counter like we have, but we would prefer not to go back to appointments. But as I said earlier, as the numbers get closer, people get closer to us, the numbers get greater in our area, those are the kinds of things that we certainly have to look at. We also may have to look at, I think we have to, not may have to, we have to not move forward with our concerts in the park, our uptown events. We have been in direct communication with county staff. They've been in direct communication with the governor's staff, and we've been given some pretty clear responses to those requests. They consider that a gathering that is no longer allowed. We even talked about drive-in concerts, and very clearly they said they consider that a gathering. People unfortunately get out of their cars and so determined that we couldn't even do drive-in concerts anymore, and so unfortunately we're going to have to cancel those as well. We have two issues relative to testing. In the CEO, city managers conference call from 2 weeks ago, I expressed an interest in trying to provide additional opportunities for the community relative to testing. And there were some examples where the county health department had stood up a location in partnership with a city and provided testing at that location. They're willing to do that if we are willing to provide the facility. I think as testing becomes more and more critical, that is something we ought to strongly consider. So I'm asking that council consider that for this evening. And in addition, in the short term, before that testing is stood up, because as you probably recall, when we stood up the mobile testing with the county, took the lead on that process, it took us a little while to get through the logistical challenges, so I assume it's going to be the same thing here. As we have exposure closer and closer to city staff, we think it's important that we provide access to testing as quickly as possible and getting answers as quickly as possible for staff members that may be exposed. And what we're experiencing is a delay, and we're hearing about this countywide and even statewide. But a delay, first of all, in getting a test scheduled, because not all facilities provide testing, and second of all, as much as 11 days to get an answer on a test. And so we believe we can develop a relationship with a local provider to guarantee that we get the tests quicker and we get the responses quicker. And we believe that that is a useful use of the COVID-19 funding from the state. It can shorten the time frame that we will be without that staff member, certainly if the test comes back negative, and even if the test comes back positive. And so, but if they're feeling those symptoms, we want to get that test done as quickly as possible. And safety for the public is so important, but also safety for the coworkers. So, two issues that we'd like some feedback on tonight. One is standing up the testing in partnership with the county health department and the county in general. We have talked about doing that at the senior center. It is not open today for other things other than the cooling center use. We do the meals through the senior center, but that's all done through either delivery or the drive-through process. We have opened it as a cooling center the last week or two, and even with the heat that we had this past weekend, we had, I think the maximum amount was 4 attendees or 4 folks that use the cooling center. And so, that's an option. We could certainly divert folks to another location if council thinks that is the right location for the testing with the county. And then the second is authorization for me to go ahead and set up that relationship for more expedient testing for staff if we need that. And then the final question I have is relative to council meetings. Many cities have actually not gone to open meetings, public meetings, during this whole process. Others have started considering having full public meetings. We're one of the few that has opened up public meetings with social distancing and requiring masks. We may want to go back to a Zoom meeting like many others have stayed with over time. Again, given the potential for exposure for the public and others. So those are the issues that I see. I think there will be more issues coming down the pike. We do believe that the school district is kind of moving towards, it's a statewide discussion, and there isn't, at least at this point, statewide direction in any way, shape, or form that we know of. But we believe that at least K through 6, the school district is moving towards having students in the seats this fall, which means we would need the STARS program, and we're ramping up for the STARS program and the crossing guards and all those sorts of things. But all of that is, of course, predicated on students in the seats. And then don't know where basketball is going to go. Right now, we're just allowing hoop shooting. Don't know where racquetball is going to go, but those are the only things. The youth sports, they just completely stopped. The state decided that not even practice for a little while. Practice was allowed. That's been stopped entirely. I think they shut down the pool at the community college. And so I expect more to come relative to our city facilities and parks, et cetera. And just for the record, what I am requesting is not only that we provide that relationship with a local provider for testing, but that the city would cover that cost. It's somewhere in the $100 range, maybe $120 is what we saw with the mobile testing, but it's somewhere in that range. And so staff would recommend that the city would cover those costs, and we think that's a justifiable use of the COVID-19 funding from the state.
So we could, what you're saying is that we'd spend it up front, we'd provide upfront money, but then get reimbursed by the COVID-19 money?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So really no cost to us. All right, any questions or comments of staff?
So we're going to extend the Emergency till when?
We can only do 30 days at a time, so we would be back to you on August 10th with another opportunity for council to decide to extend it if you so choose.
Councilmember Riddell, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I guess we'll pretty much go along with what the state says, and I pretty much agree with what Ray Casey was saying.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Allen, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I agree as well, and I think that the more proactive we can be and help our community to do likewise, hopefully we can help get this under control, so that we can get these businesses back open. But I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, he said maybe 4 to 6 weeks today. Is that correct, Ray?
I'm sorry, I did not hear a time frame that he gave. Maybe others have, but I didn't hear the time frame.
Oh, okay. That's what I had heard. And that's just, I mean, that's a month and a half. So, and then whatever we can do to make sure that people that can't get face masks, that we're helping that occur for members of our community that want them.
I appreciate that. We'll work on that as well. That was one of the things that we do believe is also justifiable expense for the COVID-19 funding. And I did want to mention one other thing, if I may, Mr. Mayor. We are continuing to provide outreach marketing for the funding that is available. And today we didn't hear anything that would preclude restaurants from continuing to serve folks outside, and we want to work with folks. We started this welcome committee, I guess. I don't know if there's a better term for it, but our community services folks, together with our planning folks, are out helping folks get whatever permits they need to do that, which is, you may recall, under the emergency declaration, we made an administrative, simple process. And then also reminding them that if they haven't applied for the county funding, that's available to do those things. And I think we're just about over the humps with the CDBG funding to be able to provide that. And then, of course, we also have the COVID-19 state funding. And so we are out in the street actually talking to restaurants one by one to make sure that, and I think we have the iPad, or the, I'll call it the iPad, out there, that they're able to fill out the application right there in the field with staff for the county funding if they haven't done that already. So we're trying to do everything we can to help folks that are serving outside to get those aesthetic improvements and comfort improvements in place to help their customers and help them through whatever process they are going through.
Okay. I have a question I'm sorry, Mr. Riddell, did you have a comment?
Well, I think this dining outside is working pretty well for quite a few restaurants. So I'd like to continue that. So.
No, I agree. I think we should do everything we can to support our restaurants and to take advantage of the outdoor dining. This is a curveball, in my opinion, and I'm sorry that we have to go through this again, but I think we should do everything we can to meet the spirit of what Governor Newsom is saying, but at the same time, make sure that we take care of our businesses as best we can, including patronizing our restaurants who suffer the most. We have a lot of essential businesses in town, and they'll be able to stay open, but wherever we can help those non-essential businesses, we should do everything we can. I do have a question with respect to using the Shearer Center as a testing site. How do you envision people getting tested? With Crafton Hills College, we had everybody in cars, and they virtually were spaced, 15 feet apart. But with the Shearer Center, I can only imagine people coming in as a walk-in test. And if somebody is infected, how do we keep that separation without spreading COVID-19?
I appreciate the question. I should have provided a little more detail about that. They would, testing would be made by appointment only, would be done by appointment only. If there was any backup, if you will, folks from the county would be staffing that testing. They would also be ensuring the social distancing was occurring as if there was folks waiting, or if there were. But the idea is to have appointments only, so that you don't have that potential for folks backing up waiting for the testing. But that we can have that consistently available throughout the day and throughout the week for residents that apparently are having trouble getting access to testing right now, at least expedient access to testing.
Okay, and during this time too, maybe I didn't hear this, but are our city parks still open for hiking and walking and?
They are. Nothing has changed with respect to the parks. There hasn't been any change in direction from the governor's office in terms of the order. Nothing has changed as far as our operations with respect to parks. We are cleaning the restrooms more often than we did before, that's for sure. But that's one of the things that we'll have to monitor and make sure that we're not having a gathering in our restrooms more than 10 people at any one time. So as it stands today, nothing has changed in our parks.
Okay. Any further questions or comments of staff?
Well, I have one. We don't have another regular council meeting for a month. What happens if there's some drastic changes along the way? Are you going to call a special meeting, or are you requesting authority to change things? What's the deal there, Ray?
We can certainly talk about that. We could call a special meeting. Council has, through the emergency declaration process, has ratified certain decisions that I've made along the way. So far, I think there's been a general comfort with that, but happy to have some communication about that this evening, some general direction. If you think that you'd prefer to have for any substantive discussions to have a special meeting, we can certainly do that.
Would you call a special meeting that is teleconference all the way around? Nobody has to go in. There's lots of cities and other districts, water districts and community services districts, that they don't. All their meetings are being conducted teleconference to everybody. Could we, if we have to make changes, can we just have a teleconference meeting so none of the council members have to come in?
Certainly. In fact, one of the things that I requested feedback on this evening is whether we have Zoom meetings for all council meetings going forward, like many of the other agencies are doing. And that could include planning commission meetings and other commission meetings. So that is an option available to the city council, seeking direction in that regard this evening.
This is Denise. I think that we should monitor what's going on in terms of cases, but if we have city staff members, and others that are in our immediate physical vicinity, I think that we should do the Zoom meetings for the time being until the numbers start to come back down. Like Councilman Riddell said, we're a month away from our next council meeting, so, we can look at what's happening maybe, the week before to determine whether we want to have that meeting in person with the option for remote. But like we have some meetings I know scheduled in the next couple of weeks, and I just don't see any reason for us not to use Zoom for those until this new order from the governor is lifted.
And I'm also being reminded that we have an upcoming mobile home park hearing that we'll have to decide how to deal with, and that's going to be a little tough to do entirely by Zoom. It is possible to do a meeting where you have the experts, perhaps, and staff and commission, or the council commission, depending on the hearing, in attendance, and have the public Zoom in or have the public available in the community meeting room. It's just, it's going to be difficult to restrict the numbers just because of number of folks that participate in those kinds of meetings. Jennifer can talk.
Well, and that can include some of our most vulnerable, so that even makes it more, of a difficult decision and to make. Because we have a lot of senior citizens that have pre-existing conditions that have in the past participated in those particular types of hearings.
Okay, any comments from the dais here?
Well, if this virus is so dangerous, just cancel the hearing for the mobile home. Just cancel it.
I'd like to at least put a comment in there. This application is for a maintenance of net operating income application. We are working with the resident representative. They have an attorney, they have a resident representative, and we are communicating with them. We do have some experts that will attend via video conference, but I have to have a court recorder here. And we would limit it to maybe 14 people that would be back in the community meeting room that could provide comment. In addition, I'm working with Greg Martin, and we will provide an audio link for them to listen to it, but they will be able to have their resident representative, their attorney, and expert. If the parties want to proceed, but yet the city delays, they could be entitled to a retroactive increase. So unless they're the ones that are recommending it, I'd really like to continue to move forward. I've worked with my attorney, Don Lincoln, for quite some time. I just get a little fearful of a delay and what that could mean ultimately, depending on the ruling of the commission. But we are allowing the opportunity for some of the people to be in attendance via video conferencing.
Sounds good.
Okay, and members of the public who wish to comment can also submit in writing too, correct?
Correct, and/or they can give it to their representative that they chose to represent them to provide the comments, and, all their reports have been submitted.
Okay. Any other comments? Dick?
I don't have any comments. I agree with what Denise had said, that I'm okay with Zoom, or we come here. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever the testing result ends up, if it's going down, we can come back. It works for me either way. But when it comes to the application for the mobile home, I think we do need to proceed. I think the residents are wise enough to make the right decision on whether to be here or listen in or so forth. Let them make that decision.
Okay, and just to remind everybody, I'm on two different boards, including SBCTA and Omnitrans, and in our general board meetings, we're all Zooming it. And staff is, nothing has changed. The staff is still available. They're either on Zoom or maybe they're inside the boardroom. With Omnitrans, what we've done is that we've had, kind of like we've done here with City Hall in the past, is that we'll allow a person to come up and say their piece, and then we'll invite another person into the boardroom to speak, and they keep their social distancing outside. So it does work. And then with our committees, we've had hybrids. Some of us are Zooming and some of us are there personally. It just depends on one's personal preference. So I don't have a problem with Zooming city council meetings, and I don't have a problem being here. So I'm just kind of, as Councilmember Bogue, I'm pretty flexible. I'm pretty confident that we can run a good meeting, whether I'm at the dais or if I have to do it via Zoom.
And then the testing, is there concurrence on partnering with the county on the testing, perhaps at the Shear Center?
I think that's a good idea.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have,
Do we need to make a motion on that?
well, it just, as long as we know that there's concurrence. I think
Well, we've got 3 people
three,
concurring.
okay, I
and
only heard 2, okay.
And maybe, yeah.
Okay. And then providing the funding and the relationship for the testing as this thing gets closer and closer to staff. Is that something that there's concurrence with council about?
I think it's good because ultimately we're not going to pay for it. We're going to get reimbursed from the COVID-19 fund that's available, correct?
Correct. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the way this system is working, this funding system is working, there is no guarantee until you get to the very end of the process. And so that is my opinion, yes.
And it's reasonable. It's not like pulling it out of the air. Okay.
I believe that's a reasonable opinion, yes.
Just to keep things in my back pocket, is that testing also available to the electeds?
You're a staff member as far as the city structure is concerned, yes.
Okay, just in case. All right, so I'm in concurrence with that. Is there anybody else?
I am.
Okay. And
Good.
so Councilmember Bogues is in concurrence, and so is Councilmember Duncan?
I'm not, but
You're-
that's
you're
okay.
not.
You got enough votes.
Okay. So we do have 3 people in concurrence, so generally speaking, we're good to go.
Okay.
Can I ask one? It might be
Yes.
a little bit off base here, a little bit strange. So beware. So if the answer to this COVID issue with our restaurants is to sit outside, and yet we're closing down barber shops and so forth, are there opportunities that they move their business outside and that we give them permits to do so?
That is a great question.
And because they're talking about restaurants, well,
Yep.
what about all these other businesses?
That's a really good question. I think one of the things that has happened in this whole process is at least we've, through the county, have got some immediate reaction or response from the governor's office. I think that's a very good question, and I think there are a lot of other business, or at least a number of other types of businesses that could do that. So we'll follow up immediately.
Well, if that's, our next council's meeting is a month away, and the barber shops will be closed probably here pretty soon, I would make that recommendation that we give you the leeway, if that is an opportunity, that you go ahead and work with them on permitting to keep those businesses open if they move outside.
Appreciate that.
Is that okay?
And I support that 100%.
Okay.
You okay with that, Mr. Duncan?
Yeah,
Councilmember?
that'll depend on what mood the governor's in, and he may just get pissed off and go ahead and tell the restaurants they can't do it either. So that's a catch-22 with him.
Well, we have nothing to lose by trying to help our businesses. So I think we should move forward to that and maybe give the city manager the latitude to just go ahead and make it under emergency proclamation, just on that blanket.
Yeah, and I have that authority, as the city attorney reminds me, but it is helpful for me to know that you are all comfortable going in that direction. So right now, I'm only hearing from 2 that you're comfortable. It would be helpful.
I'm good. That's a great idea.
Okay.
I support great idea, 100%.
Mr. Riddell, what's your opinion?
Well, things are changing so fast. You know, it's pretty tough to come up with recommendations that are going to last very long. So I think we're just going to have to kind of go along with how things develop and hope things loosen up a little bit. But I don't think we can make a recommendation. It'd be risky to make a recommendation that would last for a month, since we don't have a regular council meeting for a month. So I think we ought to leave the option open for special council meeting, even by telephone, if necessary, to kind of stay on top of this thing as things develop.
Well, my amendment was about allowing other other businesses to remain open if allowed. If it's about shifting the business outside, like they are restaurants, barber shops and, I don't know, nail salons and so forth. If the governor and the
Well, I
state of
think-
if the state of California says that's okay, I would authorize that we push that forward and allow the permitting process to do whatever it takes and expedite that.
So just for clarification, the way I would interpret that is that we would modify, I would have support for moving ahead under the emergency declaration to modify the TUP process to expand it beyond restaurants to other businesses consistent with the state allowing for that without coming back to council with a special council meeting between now and August 10th. Is
Right,
that-
if allowed by the state.
If allowed by the state.
Right.
I would agree.
I agree. I agree. Just do it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So that's at least 4.
So should I move item number 6 at this point?
So I hear a motion to approve item number 6 with the modifications as discussed,
Second.
and a second. If there are no further discussions, Jennifer, will you please call roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Bogue,
Aye.
Councilmember Duncan,
Aye.
Councilmember Riddell,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen,
Aye.
Mayor Avila.
Yes. Okay, very good. We have marching orders, and let's see if we can make this thing fly. I'm kind of excited for that. Great suggestion. Great suggestion, Councilmember Vogt. All right, announcements. Any announcements to make? Nothing? Okay, no one's going on vacation? All right, and since there are no closed meeting items, Mr. Attorney? Okay, so this meeting is adjourned. We'll see everybody in August. Thank you for your patience and understanding.